All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me and us on Find Your People. My name's Aaron Miller. I've got some pretty great people in my life, and I'd like everyone to get a chance to meet some of those people. Please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more episodes like this, and I hope that you find your people. Today's guest is a friend of mine, Jesse Shell. Um, Jesse, how's everything going?
It is going great. We're winding down the summer and just having a good time.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Jesse, kind of the way that all this stuff goes, I've got a handful of questions here, and we'll just kind of go through these and let that spark whatever organic conversation we have. So the questions that I've got, just these kind of canned questions. How did we meet? So let's start with that. Jesse, how did we meet? Do you remember how we met?
I remember it very vividly. It would have been in the summer after my first year teaching. We met at FFA camp actually, and
We
we
did.
met. It was right on the lower porch, and you guys were hooking up the tractor to go up to the gun range and take everything up. And you were like, "You ever drive one of these?" And I had no idea how. And so you're like, "Well, I'm going to show you today." And you taught me how to drive a tractor. I had only done it once before when I was in college and didn't do it very well. And so it has always stuck with me. And I remember when I came home from camp, I had still lived at home on the farm, and I told mom and dad, I said, I just made a new friend who taught me how to drive a tractor, and it was probably the best week ever. Like,
That's fun. I did not remember teaching you how to drive a tractor, but that's I don't know, that's interesting and fun and kind of speaks to you never know what you'll do in life that will have an impact on people. So fun. So that's where we met. Again, a special place for both of us up at the FFA camp. Always enjoy running into you up there. It's a good time.
yes, it
Jesse,
is.
the next question that I have for you, if you had to say that you were an expert about something, what would that thing be and why?
Ooh. If I were to say I'm an expert at something, having to call my insurance agent and deal with a claim on my car with animals, it was like clockwork. I drove a Honda Civic for many years, and like in the summertime, without fail, there was always some kind of incident. I was hit by a deer, I was hit by a raccoon that destroyed like a fender, and have had some other tragedies with my car. And so by the end of it, my agents and I had just known everything about one another. And I'm like, hold on, I know exactly what I need to do, and just dealing with that. And not that that's a great flex. I wish I could say it was, something I'm more passionate about, like being in the kitchen or, teaching middle school. But like I've had to deal with that more times than I've ever wanted to, and got to learn from
Sure.
experience.
I would say you're pretty good in the kitchen also. Kind of going back to the FFA camp stuff, our fish fry every year. You're kind of the one that heads that up. Um, So yeah, say you're good with that stuff. What year Honda Civic did you have?
I had a 2020, so I
Okay.
got it new when I started to student teach. I had had an old car before that I we always laugh. I paid $600 for this car, and I mean I drove it into the ground. It was an old Chevy Aveo 5 speed, and
Sure.
I loved driving that thing around. And it got to a point where the cost for upkeep was more than the car was actually valued. Um, and so I was like, let's look at something different and new. So my dad took me to a few different dealerships because around that time they had some really nice lease deals. And so I had fallen in love with the Honda Civic and had got that car. So
Good reliable vehicle. You still driving the Honda Civic?
I am not. I've recently switched, still Honda, but I got something a little bit bigger. Um, so I have an HRV now, but
Okay.
I
That's
was like,
like the kind of like the CRVs, like an SUV, but smaller.
yes, yeah, like a mini CRV.
Okay. Fun. I like that profile of vehicle. I don't know. I think you like a crossover, I think is
Yes,
probably how that's classified. And I enjoy those. I like the utilitarian benefits that you get from a bigger vehicle like that, but it's not so big that it's hard to manage.
exactly. And the gas mileage is still pretty similar to what I got with the Civic. I can't quite get to 40. That was my favorite thing about the Civic because I was like, I could drive all over Ohio and still have no need to get gas yet. And
Sure.
so with this one, I do have to get gas a little more frequently, but I can get about 30 to 32 miles per gallon. So I'm not complaining at all with that.
Sure. No, I am with you with that. I've got a little Ford Fiesta, and it like the average that I get with that's like 37. And yeah, it's great. I like a good fuel efficient vehicle like that.
Yeah, I love any way that I can maximize my use of the car. I'm like, if I can drive it as much as I can without putting that much gas into it.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Nobody wants to spend a whole bunch of money on anything that they don't have to. Fuel being one of those things. I am with you. So, Jesse, outside of driving tractors, FFA camp, cars, and calling insurance about those cars, my next question that I got for you: what gets you excited about life? What revs your engine, so to speak, about being a citizen of the world?
I think just people, interactions with community, friends, and just meeting new people all the time. I'm very much an extrovert, and so I love to just be around people. I like to talk to people and just be doing things with them. And no matter what it is, it could be something very small. We could just be sitting on a couch watching a movie, or we could be, going for a walk in the neighborhood, getting ice cream, doing something like whatever it is. I just love being around people, hearing their stories, sharing and growing together. I think it's one of the things I love the most about being a teacher is you have an opportunity in your classroom and with your staff to really just build that community and connect with your students, and you learn so much from them just as they learn from you is the goal. And it just it's such a rewarding thing, and with my faith we see our community as a family. It's not just you go, you pray, and you do your own thing. We're in it all together, the good and the bad. And I think that's had a big shape on my outlook with people and just life as a whole. Like, everybody is an opportunity to meet someone new and enrich your life, and you hope that you can enrich theirs too.
I like that. I like that. You talked about your faith also. Is that anything that you'd like to expand on a little bit more? I am always fascinated with that. I think that's an interesting story. And I'll let you talk about it if you'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I practice the Jewish faith. So I converted formally in 2019. I had grown up in a few different churches as a child, but started to explore and just research more and study the text in the Hebrew and the Greek, and felt really drawn to the Torah and a lot of the values and the practice that it stood for. A lot of people were like, "Why would you go backwards?" Or thinking like they look at it as it's laws, it's rules. Um, but I look at it a little differently. I look at it from the lens of, and again, you would get this, being career tech ed teachers, this is how our mind is wired, but it's a blueprint. It's how I want to build a life and a home and everything. You don't go into I said you don't go into a construction site with no plan and just start throwing things together. And for me, the Torah was that blueprint that I needed to build and enrich my life spiritually, and to help grow as a person and in my faith and in connection with God stronger and all of that. And so I'm very involved, and I lead one small congregation. They don't have a rabbi or anything, and so they've elected me to be their spiritual leader and conduct services. And then I belong to another congregation not too far from home, where I get to just be a member, but serve on the board, volunteer, and am a part of the kitchen crew when we prepare meals and do cleanup and stuff. So it's a lot of fun. It is not just, I know there's a cliche saying that a lot of people say, it's not just a religion, it's a relationship. And it really is, it's community, it's faith. There's just so much. And it's an expansion of my family.
Cool. And I think there's something to be said for that community sense like that. What does, I don't know, what does that look like? What does the community aspect of the Ohio flavor of Judaism look like?
Well, based on where we're at here in Ohio, it's very Midwestern. It's very, it's a lot of those same values. Just everyone is down to earth. Everyone looks after one another. I don't think there's ever a week where I'm not getting a phone call or calling someone in the community just to talk. Everybody shows up to every event and anything we do community wide. We just help each other. We're there for each other. I had a friend who had a knee replacement a couple years ago, and I remember, for a while everyone would show up and bring her food and stuff, and just people really came to be there and to find out how they could support her. And she's like, I didn't ask for any of this. She's like, it's just amazing, like that's our community. And anytime I've needed anything, like they've stepped in, and they've been wonderful to my family. My family is not particularly religious, and but they have felt so comfortable and welcomed and respected in those settings. My mom and dad, I mean, they're like my best friends in the whole world. And so I
You've
was like,
said
thank
that
you.
before.
I do. I mean, I am 28 and just still like a homebody. I'm like, I love being around my parents and doing stuff with them, whether it's, with my dad, we'd go to cattle sales. Mom, we're watching movies or just going to the bike path or something to walk. And, so my parents are a really important part of my life, as is my whole family and all my friends, and so the Jewish community has embraced everyone. And, I, we, we're such a small community too here in our little corner of the world that, the denominational lines aren't necessarily as strong as you would see in bigger places and amongst other faiths. Your level of observance, knowledge of Hebrew, or anything is not necessarily as important as you being the person you are in the presence of God, in the presence of community. That's what they look at, and it's really nice.
That's cool. I am always fascinated with things that are different. I didn't grow up uh, in the Jewish faith. I grew up United Methodist was the denomination of Christianity that I grew up in. We did in the confirmation class. We went to a Messianic Jewish synagogue, and that was about the closest that I got to anything like that. And I have just always been fascinated with that. I like to learn about things, and I think you can do a lot of learning about things that are different, and that being a different thing from what I'm used to. I don't know. I like to learn about that stuff, and it's a lot of the I don't know, basic doctrinal things about that religion that I've learned from you, and I've appreciated that.
Well, I appreciate that. It's different, especially in the what we do for a job. It's how many people that work in agriculture and stuff have that background. And so it's
Sure.
interesting when I get to meet new people and they see, they're like, oh, like, tell me a little bit about that. And so I'm like, it's always fun to be that ambassador and connect with people. And then in the end we find out there's so much more that we share in common and can build together than what's different or what we might have previously thought was different and separated us.
And I think that should be incumbent on all of us to figure out, how are we similar rather than focusing on the ways that we're different. Um, not that there's anything wrong with recognizing that people are different, but we've got a lot more in common than we do that's different, regardless of whatever anybody's creed or anything is. You know, we're all we're all citizens of the planet.
Yes,
And
you are.
I don't know. I think that's a cool thing about the human condition.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Moving on from that here for a second, what have you done in your life that you're most proud of?
Ooh, that's a tough one, you know. I think for me, the thing that I am the most proud of is being able to finish college and to really work at it on my own. I worked very hard for different scholarships, and even for a few years, I worked to pay for college while I was in college. So, in addition to taking 20 plus credit hours, I was working 30, 40 hours a week at various jobs. I was a tutor, I taught religious school at a synagogue in the area, and I worked at a dairy research facility so that I could pay for that year of schooling. And it, to me, it taught me a very valuable lesson and just reaffirmed why I was there and why I wanted to go to school. My parents never had that opportunity, and to be able to go and do it not only for myself but for them. And it's meant a lot to me. And they have been so supportive of my siblings and I, just to go, like, find your path, whether you want to go to workforce, whether you want to go to college, whatever. They said, we want to make sure that it's accessible to you, because they just didn't have those opportunities. They were in the 70s and 80s when they were in high school and then graduated. And so for them, it was a big deal for us to go to college or to find a good paying job, or gain a skill or trade. And I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I knew education has always been something that I have been drawn to. And I wanted to finish out strong. And I always say, I'm like, I took the scenic route. I was there for 5 years, but I said I had two majors, two minors, and really tried to maximize the experience. And every semester was on the dean's list. Almost finished with a 4.0.
That's
But
awesome.
had an animal nutrition class that really got me, which always still to this day like stumps my dad, because he's like, that was the class. He's like, not a math class, not a science. He said it was animal nutrition, something that you've done your whole life.
Was there anything in particular that you struggled with animal nutrition?
I think keeping my focus. That professor was a very kind person, and I know had well intention, but every slide and lecture was on this lime green background and white lettering. And so I would just look at it and I was like, oh, this is not good. And then he had this like slow drawl. And so it was like, this voice is just going to like put me at ease and to sleep. And so the bleak screen plus his voice, I think this is not a good combo. And I had a lot of friends in that class, so I kind of got distracted. We'd be talking and like, oh, let's go to lunch, or let's do this. And
Sure.
so,
I don't know if that's ergonomics, but definitely the way that, I don't know, the way that you present information should be accessible to your students. So I don't know. That's something that I try to be mindful of with my class. Um, how you convey that information is just as important as the information that's being conveyed, I think.
absolutely. Well, and I think, you do a really great job of it. And, from FFA camp, your students got to share a little bit and tell me a little bit of class. And of course, following on social media, it's so cool to see. I love the little updates and seeing the things that you do with the students, because you do make it so accessible. And so I think, a lot of people can learn from that. I mean, I know I'm inspired by the way you teach and present that information too. So.
I appreciate that. That is one of the things that I've always, I guess, taken pretty seriously in my classroom is being able to do cool stuff, and not that there's anything wrong with knowing I don't know, the big ticket items that you're trying to talk about, but also breaking that down into a little more bite-sized chunks that kids are able to digest easier.
Absolutely. Somebody told me one time a student's attention span is about the length of time that their age is. So if you're teaching 12-year-olds, you've got about 12 minutes before you can lose them on something. And so you've got to do everything you can to keep them engaged and to make them want to learn it and make it applicable and relevant to them. And so I think that's something that you do really well, as you share what you're passionate about with them in a way they understand, and it just creates a real cohesive classroom community.
Yeah. One of those quotes that I like from people in education is people don't learn from teachers they don't like. And I don't know. Maybe that's just something that spoke to me better than some of the other educational quotes, but I don't know. Build that community, find your place. I think there's a place for everybody, especially in public education. And I don't know. I think that's a cool part of this job is, you know, there's something for everyone in there. And I don't know, regardless of what it is that they're learning in there, I think everybody can learn something in those ag education classrooms.
Absolutely. There's a lot to offer, and it's like for a lot of kids and even for us teachers, sometimes we don't even see what's right in front of us, and it's just right there waiting to be uncovered, or you just dive into something. I teach a project and unit on architecture and construction to get kids ready for the shop, to practice measurements and stuff. I said, if you had known me in high school, I said, there is no way I would ever been able to identify a blueprint or even create something like that, let alone use math in a practical way. And, it's been so fun to see that and to introduce these things that are outside my comfort zone, but do it with the kids. And, it makes me think the Talmud, one of our holy books in Judaism, says, I'm paraphrasing here because it's a much longer verse, but as we teach, we learn, and we really grow into and become ourselves as we're doing these things. And, we find our limits and areas of growth. And just as we're supposed to scaffold our kids, we can do it for ourselves too. Content and what we do shouldn't stay stagnant for us. If we are bored, the students are bored. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. I've had, I think with any teaching job, you're going to have things that you get excited about, and you're going to have things that you just kind of get through. Um, I don't know. Yeah, that's how it is for me. I know that there are, especially with kind of those entry classes where you're given a broad spectrum of content. Yeah, there's definitely things in there that I just kind of get through, but there's also some things that I get excited about. And that's the always the struggle for me is how can I bring those just get through it things up to something that I do get a little bit more excited about and hopefully make that a little bit more accessible for those kids.
it's it's hard, but it's so rewarding too. There are days where we do stuff, especially I love, it's like I have a love-hate relationship with teaching in the shop. And that's usually the very last thing I do. So the last 2 months of school, we're in the shop because in my mind they're staying active and busy. They have projects to complete, and because in a lot of their classes, once they're done with state testing, they can kind of coast, take it easy. And I was like, I don't want them to lose focus or anything. So we're working in the shop on different things. But at the same time, I'm like, it just gets more and more chaotic as the summer draws near. And so, it's like, okay, finding that balance to keep my sanity, but, keep providing the students with quality experiences and opportunities, and not just, okay, we're going to go sit down and not do anything.
Right, right. Yeah, we're just going to play Hangman today. Ah, not about that. Kind of going off of that, what is your favorite thing to teach about in the class? You talked about some of those things that, kind of we've both kind of talked about our just get through it stuff. What are the things that you get excited about? What do you love to teach?
It changes year to year with like the group of students, kind of based off of their energy and excitement. I mean, there's a lot that I get really excited about. Soils being something, it's just get through it for me. But I do try to put it on like it's the greatest thing ever for the kids, because I'm like, it is super important and a building block of everything else in agriculture. So I'm like, I try to really get excited about it, but I'm like, it's just not my passion. But I love anything animal science, genetics. That's something I get really passionate about. And the kids seem to really enjoy it too. We do a lot of little mini projects and some lab activities in those units. Um, and because my class is pretty much all introductory, I have about 130 seventh graders, give or take each year.
Wow.
Sometimes it's 125, 130 has been the range, that are getting this. So I have only seventh grade, which is something unique, with our program that I teach in.
Sure.
And so like we get to really dive into a lot of different things. But animal science is always a top one. Food science, I'm very, very passionate about as well. I love food product development, calculating nutrition, and just making things with the kids, getting those hands-on, tactile skills, and giving the kids these opportunities. At the end of the year, myself and another teacher, we partnered up and we did a chopped unit, with the kids, and
Tell me more about that. What does that look like?
it looks like 3 days of chaos and fun. So the kids, we had pretty much disposal of all the stuff in the food science lab. Like, it's the end of the year, we got to get rid of stuff, and so the kids, we had about 40 kids, because we divided the whole grade, um, and so each kid could pick a different kind of out area of focus that they wanted at the end of the year. So that last week of school, it's really unique. It's called a breakout week, and the kids go into these specialized things that different teachers kind of put together. So I like to do something in the food science realm. I've done cupcake wars before, and just some other culinary explorations. And so this year I wanted to make it chopped themed, and so we put together like just a mix of stuff. Like some kids got like peanut butter fruit cocktail and like random stuff, like make something out of this. And like we'd give them timed trials to develop a new food, cook it. And in the process, we're teaching them proper methods of food preparation, how to check the temperature, why that's important. They're getting a hands-on look at the chemistry of food and like how different food science changes take place, when they're sugar caramelizing and things like that they just don't realize. And then they have that aha moment in the kitchen, and so they're doing that. We gave the kids a budget, and we actually took them to a local market, and they had to get local produce and stuff to make a dish as well. That was going to be like their signature staple dish. And we had lots of other different cooking trials where they had to practice breads, pastries, and cakes. They had to do proteins and cook all kinds of different things. And so it was so much fun. The kids loved it. We got really good feedback from it, and as we typically do. I mean, who does what middle schooler doesn't love to eat? Um, but it takes a lot of planning. I think the teacher and we started planning about a month in advance, making phone calls, to see about different chefs coming in to just talk to the kids, getting celebrity judges. One was a professor from Wilmington College, and some others. We had a couple other teachers in the school come in, and they were judges as well. And so it was really fun. And as you know, like I was very involved in the family and consumer science in high school. Just as much as I was an FFA, I was also heavily involved in the FCCLA and was really passionate about that. So I took a lot of culinary classes in high school, and was involved with a lot of those different things. So it was fun to bring that passion in, and link it to our standards and what we have to teach and make it fun for the kids.
That's cool. That sounds like a really interesting kind of unit to do like that. You said the kids liked it.
They very much did.
And I don't know, that's a great life skill. I mean, how often have, I don't know, you don't have a whole lot, you don't have like a dish prepared at the house, but you need something to eat. So I've got these ingredients. What can I make with that? That's cool.
And giving understanding the budget and how all that works. I mean, the kids were really good about it. And when I do a previous project in the year too, when we do the construction project, I tie in some elements of interior design and some of the STEM background with that as well. And so they have a budget, they have to furnish it, they have to look at the land capacity and look at a lot of those different things. And so they have an idea and understand like costs of things better. And as the year goes on, I think giving them the budgets and those activities, they're like, wow, as an adult in real life, like money does not grow on trees. And so they're figuring out some of this stuff early on. I mean, just getting them into an actual, grocery store and market, they can look at the prices. They were comparing, like, what's a better deal, and so being able to see them just develop and use critical thinking was really awesome in it too.
Sure. And I've got a project that I do with my kids. It's called the Game of Life. And it's kind of like that, but it does feel very much like a game rather than like a real world thing. Like if you have a list, well, this is what all these things cost. Well, that's fine, but that doesn't give you the ability to shop it around like you've got with the way that you do that. I like that a lot.
It's fun. I will send it to you. I have the whole unit planned, even broken down to the hour, which me, I'm very type B. So to do that was like pulling teeth. But I'm like, I had to make a schedule and have everything ordered because I was working with another teacher, and so it was really good to collaborate. She was the math teacher I work with, who is just awesome and was able to incorporate a lot of her content into it as well. So just having that cross curricular experience and really building a good opportunity and just experiential learning for the kids was a blast.
That sounds like it would be. My personal favorite thing that I get to teach at school, we do a deer processing unit every year during Ohio's shotgun season. You can see some of the hunting stuff back behind me. That's one of my passions, and I like being able to bring that to my classroom. We'll start out the week after Thanksgiving is when gun season is. Shoot one or two deer, and then we'll take them to school, and the kids all get a chance to try some of it, and we process them. Last year, we fed a whole bunch of kids that, and that was a really, you know, that was really cool for me because I'd never done that before, and a lot of those kids had never tried wild game before, and they had a chance to do that with that unit. And that's my favorite thing, and I think it's really cool. And that's kind of I won't say it's unique to us where I teach at, but it is, that's something that not everybody does. Just like I don't do that chopped unit right now. That's a cool thing, and kids where I'm at, they enjoy that and appreciate that. Some of them, maybe they hunt deer, but they take them somewhere to process them, so they get a chance to see kind of how all of that stuff comes together, and I really enjoy that.
That's really cool. Now, what do you do jerky? How do you prepare the meat? I mean, I've also never had deer, so I'm curious. Do you have the kids make different things? I mean, tell me more about what you guys do with when you're processing and preparing.
Yeah, so I'll give you the less than 5 minute version of what we do that week. So the nice thing about where I'm at, we get the Monday after Thanksgiving off, which is always the first day of Ohio's firearm deer seasons. Um, so this past year, I shot two really big does right down the road from the house and take them in on a trailer. We'll start the morning out with two carcasses on the trailer with the hides on them still. So field dressed, cold. Let's do this thing. I have a hoist in my shop, so we'll lift them up with that, and I'll show kids how to. It's called caping a deer with these animals that have been taxidermized back here. They were all caped, where you take the hide all the way up to the base of the skull. That is how you cape an animal. Not the fastest way to do it, but it works if you're just doing one of them. Um, that's a good way to do that. And we'll take the carcasses and get all the hide off of them. And from there, we just start breaking them down. I've got a big old meat grinder, So we'll keep our like our trimmings pile like you would with any processing that you'd be doing. We'll keep our trimmings there to grind some of the big roasts. A lot of times we'll grind those into burger. Um, the back straps, the muscle that runs on the top of the spine of a deer, we'll keep those. That's good to grill with.
Mhm.
One of the things that we did last year, we made some jerky with the rib bones. If you take a knife and cut between those ribs, there's a nice jerky sized piece of meat in between each of them. It's got some tallow on it. But a lot of the kids like that, especially if you get it right out of the smoker when it's still warm and that tallow's kind of rendered down a little bit. That was a big hit last year. But yeah, so we'll just break it all the way down. Typically, well, the past 2 years, I've shot 2 deer and processed 2 deer that week. So we'll eat one of them, and then I'll take the other one home with me. Everybody's happy with that. Um, but yeah, we'll get the Blackstone hot typically Wednesday, Thursday. When we're kind of wrapped up with it, we'll get that going. We'll make uh, make some burgers or cut some steaks out, cut some of the back straps up, and just put that on there. Kind of, I guess, not as cool as your chopped episode or your chopped unit that you do, but we've got all of our like seasoning mixes and stuff like that there at the school. Kids get a chance to, I typically just give some of my older kids that project during their class. Hey, make food for us. We've got the ability to do a little bit of that, and that's always cool. We've got like the big jugs of seasonings that we have. So they'll do some of that business. This past year was the first year I'd done it all the way through like this, but I have some leftover sausage casings.
Okay.
So we made sausage with it last year. Big linked bratwurst sausages, and that was a cool thing for those kids also get a chance to see like how your food's made. Well, this is it. This is how they make sausage. One of the sayings that I've heard before is once you see how sausage is made, you'll never want to eat sausage again. But I disagree with that. The kids got to see exactly what goes into it. We're not grinding up hooves and brains and all that stuff with it. It's good quality. It's good quality cuts going into it, which I think is cool. And I think it's good for those kids to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Jesse, I've got you for another minute and 8 seconds. What do you want to leave us with? If you could give a message to the citizens of the world, what would you tell them?
I would say just give every day your best foot forward. Not every day is going to be perfect. You can still be an optimist and have a bad day, but it's always about your perspective and how you really take on those challenges. No matter what life throws at you, just, you are loved. Find your people, find your community, and rely on that. Just keep building each other up and being a good person. And at the end of the day, that means more to someone than anything else.
I love it. I love it. And I love what you said there too about finding your people.
Well, you're
Everybody,
welcome.
I've found a lot of my people. I will speak for Jesse with this. We both hope that you find your people also. Like this video if you want to, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back with some more episodes of Find Your People. Have a good day, everybody. Jesse, have a good day.
You too, Miller. We'll talk soon.
See you, man.
All right. Bye.
Bye.